silence. Little pun there. The Sanskrit word for one of the three poisons is called Avidya. Tibetan is marigpa. It means to ignore, look away, not see, distract. There's several ways that works. Something can be in front of you and you can just distract yourself from it. Have you ever noticed a real personal experience? Have you noticed that you're talking to someone and you think you're having a conversation with them? You have eye contact, you have everything there, and then they just go somewhere else. You're still looking and they're just thinking, gone somewhere else, they're thinking, but something has distracted them. Avidya, marigpa, shutting down, one of the three poisons. The other two are passion and aggression. So passion is the one that's pulling and seducing and trying to get and desiring and wanting and craving. Gotta have it. And the other one is attacking and chopping it up, doing away with it, killing it, and so on, which is aggression. So passion, aggression, and then the third of the three poisons, which keeps us from seeing, styles that keeps us from seeing who we are and what this is, fundamentally, with a capital F. Capital F, UN, fun. I'm trying to use some passion to kind of seduce people into looking at that word. It'll be fun. Fundamental, fun. Fundamental. So those are the three ways, and the idea here is not so much to stop those prematurely before we even see what they are, but to see how they run. See how they run. You ever heard of three blind mice? Sorry, I'll be silly. So if we see how that actually works, if we can see in our own life how we pull on something, want something to be different, we want it to be closer, we want more of it, or we want less of it, go away, or to the extreme, we want to just get rid of it, we want to obliterate it. That could be something out here in our world, it could be something that's happening in our mind, our emotions, how we're feeling, we don't like this feeling, we want to feel some other way. We're bored, we want to fill it up with fun. Or maybe maybe we look at that the other way. We're bored and we want to destroy the boredom. You could even say you want to ignore the boredom. One of the ways that we can ignore boredom is to be so bored at meditation that we get up and go do something else. Find something fun to do. Avidya. So the way we work with that is as meditators, as Buddhists, as people on a spiritual path, using awareness practice as a way of seeing more deeply, seeing more clearly what is fundamentally true. It's not a belief system. There's nothing here to believe, nor to disbelieve, but to see deeply into each moment that you think there is, so that you ignore the open, spacious dimension that is always appearing, always being offered to you. It's always appearing. The way we shut down on that and want something else. We want that to stop. We want something else to start. And this comes out of a kind of assumption that there is some kind of little person in here that has some kind of say so. Try to promote that. Or we might try to get rid of it. But we just don't like anything the way it is, exactly. And it isn't so much about liking it, it's about not taking exception to it, not doing anything with it. And it seems that the process of sitting meditation, by sitting down and watching what moves, which is the way I teach this, it's watching what moves. And I've done lots of other practices, as you've heard me say. And this is the one I think that I want to teach this. I don't particularly want to teach other ones, other forms, unless you come to me and then I see through you interacting, through us interacting, I see you might need to do this because you're presenting, you're saying, I want this other way of doing this. This is just too open. There's too much, there's not enough there. So then we'd say, okay, well, let's back up and see what would work to help you. You could say, a way of saying it, stabilize. Have a little bit of stability where you just sit here and don't do much. You're not interested in adding things. You're not interested in subtracting. You're not interested in dividing. You're just here. And when we're just here, we begin to see really, truly, and fundamentally, there's that fun word again, what is actually the case. Actually, if you see what is actually going on or not going on, or you see what this is, and what this is, you will, as you've heard me say before, you'll probably be speechless for a while because it's just about impossible. It is impossible to describe or explain. But after a while, you think, maybe I should try to work with this in some way that encourages people to see this for themselves. Because then when you see this, you know that you have to see this yourself. You have to actually see it. So that there is, it's not like a no doubt that you're totally sure, you're confident, no one can take this, no one can change your mind. It's as if you were sure and unsure at the same time. It's a very strange feeling. We're used to feeling positive or negative. And if we're in the middle, that's a little bit too wishy-washy. So we're looking somewhere to pull us this way or pull us that way. So Sheldon, do you have something specific you wanted to ask about avidya or ignorance?
It seems like some things seems like there are a lot of things that we ignore, that we don't even are any aware at all that we're ignoring. Habits, especially habits.
Yes.
And habits.
One of the ways that the great Indian sage of the last century, Nisargadatta Maharaj, talked about ignorance is that he said all knowledge is ignorance. And the way he was talking about this is anytime you know something, you're ignoring everything else. So anytime you know this, everything else is being ignored. But if one is living in an open dimension where there is not particularly fear, nor is there not particularly hope, but there is just an attention to what is arriving and falling, including the thoughts here, the awareness of the feelings, the memories are arising without being interfered with, without being meddled with. And what is happening out here in the world as your life experience day to day is not particularly being meddled with. I'm not talking about just necessarily going out and meddling with somebody, but when something occurs, someone says something to you, doing anything with that. Just hear the words. If they say something, you hear the words, understand what's being said. But if you add something like, they shouldn't be talking that way, or they should be functioning another way, or they don't like me, or they like me, or any kind of interpretation of anything, is we're beginning to do what? Ignore the very space in which things are occurring. We focus on this because we don't want it, or we want it, or we want to control it. So what is being said? I'm saying, don't do that. But what I am saying is just be aware of the awareness itself will take care of everything. There's no guarantee. You can't come back and sue me. Awareness didn't take care of everything. 15 or 20 things went well, and then all of a sudden this one thing, awareness wasn't working. I had to actually start thinking again. Well, I'm not saying you should stop thinking. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But if the awareness is really strong and sharp and clear and is primary, then over time, depending on what your karmic situation is, what is arising as you individually, your own particular relationship to avidya, to passion, aggression, and ignorance, your own dynamic there. Some people have more passion going on and less of the other two. Some people have more aggression going. Some people are going from one to the other all the time. But when the awareness, just the attention coming through the sixth sense field, just being aware of what is arising, what's falling. Mark?
Would you say that a Zen practitioner has an experience of, let's say, boundless potential? That phrase has been caught up in my mind for some reason.
Where'd you hear that?
I don't know. I think I came up with it myself, but I mean,
I don't think I said it.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like
No.
I'm not that
doesn't
quite
sound
excited about stuff.
No.
I'm kind of flat. But I wouldn't mind hearing that. I mean, I could see where a particular individual may, especially a person who had a lot of difficulty with their potential, who, because through the sitting practice of meditation, that was starting to break down a little bit or come apart, and they were starting to see the potentiality. Potential is a very powerful word because it's nothing as much as happening, but there's a sense of exuberance that's not particularly noticeable in terms of your action, but there's a readiness to act because there's no hope and fear going on. There's no hope that things will be different than this. You know, like anytime you hear yourself say, if only, that's what I'm talking about. If only this were what happened or that would happen. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying you should stop that. That is in fact, and then fiction, that's a Dharma gate. That is a Dharma. If only use that, see how that is, see how that spontaneously springs out of hope and fear. If only she would, they would, I could, if only I could get this or get that. So I would say that that's something that could arise as a conceptual situation. And you know, it would be so different for each person that, excuse me, I'm not here to say that if that is a conceptual model that is helpful for you to, especially if it gets you to the cushion, it gets you to actually sit down and see what is potential, what is boundless. What is without barrier? What is without limits? How do we even get to the idea of limits? Has anyone seen the movie Interstellar? Interesting movie that directly addresses preconceptions about the world. And we have such powerful preconceptions about, excuse me, and then the one that is the most powerful that seems to hamper us, I guess, or slow us down, or close off the world so it's harder for us to see potential and boundlessness. As what was I going to say? Everything is self-liberated. You don't have to hang on to anything. You don't have to complete a sentence. I give you permission. The only way you can really see your life is to forget your life. To see the self is to forget the self. Sure.
What do you mean when you say everything is self-liberated?
It's a it's saying that whatever arises in the mind, if a thought comes up, if you do nothing with it, it's self-liberated. It's just it can't stick if there's no self. It can't stick if there's no grasping, no rejecting, no acceptance, you don't have to accept anything. It's self-liberated. It just springs into back into the void from whence it came. And there's no fanfare either. Self-liberated. It's just that. This arises and it's gone. Rises and it's gone. And there's no residue. The challenging thing is through looking for cause and effect, we tend to create some kind of evidence for things. That's where you can know that's happening because of this, because of that. We tend to kind of hang on to the evidence to kind of reconstruct our world of things that are coming and going based on our ideas and our hopes and fears and our opinions and our evaluations. And this kind of situation supports or nourishes a phrase like "if only." That wouldn't happen. So, and it's not about stopping it. Again, it's not about stopping. It's about being aware. Then, amazingly, if the awareness is really powerful there, that may recede, and it may come back and just haunt the daylights out of you. But the amazing thing about it is you won't mind. That's what's hard to catch, because if there's still some kind of clinging going on, then you'll think, well, this must not be working because I'm still thinking of that. We're always looking for evidence. All evidence is partial. I haven't said that before. I'm saying it now. Haven't I said that before? Well, good for me.
You might have kind of answered it, but okay, so this "if only" is a Dharma gate. You said that, and then I've heard you say only do something if you have to.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, it's a Dharma gate, like, because why isn't that a Dharma gate? Because there's a let's see, does awareness keeping where you're just being aware of what you're doing with passion, aggression, or
Just simplify. I follow you.
or does that
I'm
mean you
starting
need
to
to
get
do
dizzy.
something about this? It's time to make it move.
Okay, well, give me one question.
Oh shoot, sorry. Okay, so I guess why is "if only" a Dharma gate? I guess.
Well, why is "if only"? Because it's a Dharma gate. Because if only you look at it, if only you look at "if only," then you'll begin to see where it gets its fuel, how it's fueled. It's a Dharma gate. You begin to see that everything is dependently arisen, and you start to see it just like a little serial story. You start to say, and you won't say this, I'm about to say something that'll help you see what I'm talking about, but you won't be saying this because it'll be so clear, there won't be any comment. But this is what it would feel like if you were to make a comment. Oh, I see how this leads to that now. But you won't say that, because if you did that, then you're bullshitting yourself. It's like it's what that is about without the commentary. And the way there's no commentary is you're not backing away from it into the concept of the commentary. You're actually sitting right in the muck of that, so you can see it. So it's a Dharma gate. More?
No, thank you.
That's pretty good. That actually helped me. I'm helpless. Yes.
It kind of feels like maybe when we're aware of no self, that's not going to change the ignorance of ignorance. It'll still be the case, but we just won't mind.
Yeah, you won't mind. When I say you won't mind, it's just part of what's around. Everything is dependently risen, so you don't have to get rid of anything. It's just we talk about passion, aggression, and ignorance, so you can see how this is functioning to create a self that creates suffering because it's not getting what it wants. Any other questions, Michael?
Could you talk about ignorance and emptiness?
Ignorance is emptiness. Want to ask me anything else about it?
How so?
No, that's a hard one. I think I've been pinned down. Well, in the relative sense, it's empty because you aren't able to, you don't know it's there, so it's empty. It's like something is being empty. It's relatively empty. Does that work all right, or?
Well, all concepts are empty.
That's true.
So is there a difference between a concept and ignorance?
No. I had to think for a minute.
And emptiness is empty.
Emptiness is empty of what you think it is.
So how do they say that all dharmas are empty?
How did I say it?
I mean, it's
All dharmas are empty.
why do they say that they're empty?
Because it's a way of teaching it. Everything is empty. All dharmas are empty. I mean, they would have to be empty. You can't find anything that lasts for more than it's gone. Everything is gone. Gone.
So you can say that Sheldon is empty.
He doesn't look empty, but I think he is.
So emptiness is not really about existence.
Well, existence, non-existence. It's just more polarity. It's just more emptiness, fullness, emptiness. They're just positions.
All right. Well, this person is here, right?
Yeah, it's a trick question. Yes, go ahead.
My question is that sometimes we take emptiness and people will say, well, that bench is empty. Well, it's empty of what I think it is, right?
Go on.
But the bench is still here.
Yeah, but it's dependently arisen, therefore it's empty.
Yes.
You said yes awful quick.
The reason it's empty, right, is that I can't know all the causes that made this bench.
That would be
what
a
it
start.
is.
That would be a start. The causes and conditions that arise as any given thing are streams flowing in the darkness. You can't find them. Too many. But we can find this. This
Yes.
is this.
So my question is that emptiness doesn't tell us that this isn't here.
What?
This bench.
What?
When I say something is empty,
Okay,
doesn't necessarily say that this is not here.
I don't know.
When we talk about emptiness, is that a way to talk about the ultimate?
That's a way of talking about the ultimate.
And is that all it is?
I think so. Just a way, there's no way to talk about ultimate, so we need something. So emptiness seems to work pretty well.
As soon as we talk about ultimate, do we miss the point?
Unless we don't. If you don't, then you can talk. If you really understand what this says, you can talk or not talk. You can be involved in the three poisons or not. If there's no self, no other, the polarity is gone. It's just not. It's not like it's gone. It's that you finally, you could say, see that there never was anything separate.
Because isn't no self just another concept? It's a polarity to self.
Yeah, it's just a way of talking about it that will help you see. And then when we get to the point of actually talking about it, the realization of it, that there's both a self and there's not a self at the same time. It's called not two, non-dual. So the initial stepping towards that looks like you're going to vanish. Question. You look questionable. That's why. Yes. You know,
How can we be aware of no self?
well, the concept of no self, we begin to look towards what seems to be experiencing things or is afraid of things or enjoys things, the so-called imaginary being there. The more we look, the more imaginary we just realize that it's just it's a bundle of things, feelings, emotions, passion, aggression. It's discontinuous. It doesn't have any solidity to it. It isn't actually something that can be protected or defended or advanced, or because it's not solid. It's not separate from anything else, so it's dependently arisen. When you see that, when that is seen, then all of the warfare or the worry about anything, worry about what people think, worry about success and failure, worry about the temple being here in 3 weeks or not being, worrying about being alive or dead, just doesn't mean that you don't think, if you're a living being, you don't think about dying, but it's a completely different kind of situation if there's no longer an assumption about a separate self. Doesn't mean you wouldn't go to the doctor or try to take care of yourself or something, but it's a different situation altogether. More.
I'm just thinking about those words, being aware of no self. It just seems like a contradiction.
It is. There's anything to be aware of. There isn't anything there. Try to find it. It's an endless. Find it, and then what's aware of that, and then what's aware of that. Well, if something is aware of that, and what's aware of that? You can do that. Don't have to do anything. What begins to occur is when this is seen through, and if it's really seen through, then we start to see through out there, others, other beings, other things, everything. We start to see through the whole thing. There's no solid separation. There's something here. There is something here, and it's incredibly powerful and exuberant and full of potential. And it is what? It's reality. Use the R word. It's just this, and you're not separate from it. You don't have to join it. You don't have to reject it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to do anything else. Falling apart. All of your concepts, all of your ideas, all of your hopes, your fears, your beliefs, your ideas about everything, all the things you've ever been taught, falling apart, completely collapsed. Nothing to do. Why is there nothing to do? There isn't anyone anymore. There's no longer a being. Even if you're robbing. Even if you're robbing a bank. That's not very funny. All right, what do you want, Robin? Darn it.
Well, the way that I'm, is it not that wisdom trumps knowledge?
Yes. Very, very good. Robin's been paying attention. What do you say?
Wisdom trumps knowledge.
Usually. There's a couple exceptions.
Except when it
Huh?
doesn't. Or not.
Except when it doesn't. Yeah. Thank God for that. Further questions? We have time. Please come and get me.
How does avidya arise with intense emotional negativity?
Well, if there's intense emotional negativity, which would be like aggression, if there's intense emotional negativity, then it could be the three poisons are always working with each other. An example, just to like tell a little story, if you get really mad at somebody about something, and then you start to have remorse about it because you just were too mad, you were too mean to them, you shouldn't have been doing that, you blew it, you expressed yourself, and you threw a paint stick at them. Well, I'm trying to keep it from being too dangerous. And they yelled, and they felt bad, and they ran away, and then you started feeling guilty. So there's aggression, and then there's passion. They follow each other. The passion is, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. The aggression reinforces an I who's mad. The passion, the guilt reinforces an I who's wrong. And what comes next? Ignorance. Then you ignore the whole thing. Then you kind of back out. We see it in ourselves. It's really strong in people who have addictions. It's really powerful in them. I'm not condemning anybody to anything, but I'm just saying it seems to be, from my experience, it seems to be extremely powerful. But it's powerful for all of us, but it happens in different ways. But watch that sometimes. The next time you get angry, watch how passion will follow right behind it. If it doesn't, come and see me. If you just continue to stay mad, come and see me. I'll calm you down. And then the next thing is or it could be, it might not be guilt, but it might be a constant thing about you. You had a right to be mad. You know, we jump away from the anger and then to the story about the justifications for anger. Well, they shouldn't have done that. Well, that'll teach them. They'll see that they can't do that to me. They can't blah, 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 blah. And then that you can only keep that going so far, maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs or a few sentences or maybe a short story. But eventually it wears out. And then we go into what? Ignoring the whole thing. And quite often we do that by distraction. We're so tired of that part of the passion, or the aggression, and then the passion that we ignore. And as soon as you ignore, then if something triggers that again, if that passion, if that aggression has not been seen through in some way, some fundamental way, if you still are hiding your aggression somewhere in here, then someone, as it says in the Alaya Vijnana, the seeds, the vasanas, and the 8th consciousness that get triggered. And the next thing you know, you're enraged again, and then you justify it, you condemn it, or you feel guilty, or whatever, and then you shut down again. Sound familiar? Yeah. It sounds familiar to anybody who's trying to work with this and trying to understand it. It's like, yeah, that does seem to do that. Yes, Jeff?
This is coming from a totally different direction, but
That's all right. As long as you have your green shirt on, you can say whatever you
okay.
want.
I'm still Kermit.
So Kermit.
Do you feel like your relationship with Trungpa Rinpoche as a teacher ended when he died? Do you think it's still present?
It's still right here. He's sitting here. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying it is. Without him, I would not be here. So dependently risen.
And you mean that in more than just a symbolic or metaphorical
Of course. Yeah. It has to be. And same thing with Kobin or any other teacher, or His Holiness the 17th Karmapa, whom I've never met.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, and I don't mean to be some kind of, I have some kind of a magical connection with His Holiness. I don't mean that. I mean that it's just things are not separate. And if you begin to see that, you realize that you're not separate from anything. You're not separate from the worst person you talk to today. When I say worst person, a person who's really having difficulty and giving you a hard time or other people a hard time. It's not separate. It's painful. It's called compassion. Feeling with, not trying to fix anybody. Feeling with, not easy. Wait, who had their hands up again?
Well, this one's from Chuck.
Okay, we'll take Chuck.
8:42 p.m. So
8:42, my goodness, we'll take Chuck's question.
he says, or asks, what does comprehending not to do for us?
Comprehending the statement or the concept of not to readjusts our relationship with concepts. You already know this, Chuck. I mean, it readjusts it. It helps us to not put quite so much stock in the concept. We tend to see more if we see not to, we begin to see that the recipe, this is a recipe, it is not a meal. Right, Chuck? On Chuck? No, he's in there, he's in that box. So it helps us, it helps you could say, deepen our understanding of that kind of a concept. It's a very specific concept, not to, non-duality, not to. So that what this does is by saying this, contemplating this, it brings you to do what? Look at how you assume that there's two-ness, or that there things are separate. So by thinking the concept not to, so you could actually use that as a contemplation. You could look at your life and see that we're constantly making assumptions that things are separate from us, and that we can get rid of the things we don't want and get the things we want. We do it all the time, starting with our thought patterns when we're sitting looking at the wall. We don't want certain thoughts, and if they come in, we think they're wrong, which is saying what? We think they're separate from us, not two. Not two. So it's just it's like an assist. It's like when we go back into, by having these kind of concepts, like the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 12 Links, not to, non-duality. It's just that when we start to go back into the conceptual situation, instead of using those concepts to reinforce our identity, our separation, our validity as an individual person, instead those concepts to help us see that these are all parts. Some of the Buddhist school of on emptiness emphasizes the particularist school, the Vaibhashikas, I think it was, where emphasize that separation into atoms, that there was a fundamental reality and there were just little tiny balls of hardly anything. So we've been breaking things down for a long time, but eventually we have to see that there actually both is something and there isn't something at the same time, empty. You understand what I'm saying, Ruby?
Not really.
Good. Everybody else looks like they're really understanding, but I'm just checking to see if you were understanding. No? But you hear me, right? You hear me? But you don't understand? Perfect. That's where we all start, right there. That's how I started. Yes.
A question from Christina in Traverse City.
Christina,
If one seems to have a negative sense of self, unworthy, how do we work with that?
so the negative sense of self or being unworthy or feeling like low self-esteem and all the other things like that, that's just a passion. And it's just it's a grasping at identity of the self-centeredness in a negative way, saying I'm not worth, I'm just not done so many this and so many that. And then there's the other ones, the other way where we don't even see anything we do. And we've got all this pride going on where we're just so, even if anybody points out anything we do, there's so much pride going on, so much incredibly intense narcissism. Sometimes narcissistic people with a lot of narcissism might talk about suicide, but they aren't about to commit suicide. I think I got to do away with the person they're so in love with. I think it's so wonderful. The person that ends their life is the person that might be on the other end of the spectrum. The person that has a lot of shame or a lot of guilt that could have been, when I say could have been, it is. It's brought up by causes and conditions. We have those emotions and everything, even though they seem incredibly real, like the odor of a skunk seems real. You know, we want to act on that. We want to run away from the skunk. And if it's a skunk, you probably should. But the actual sensation of feeling really intense passion, aggression, ignorance, or negativity, or shame, or feeling worthless, unreal. It's an example I use all the time because I think it gets us a little closer. Is it's like watching a really intense emotional movie. You know, it's not real. We know it's not real, but it's so heart-wrenching because something sad is happening with someone. Or so, you know, someone has lost someone they love, or you know, it's not real, but we feel that. We can still feel it. This is what happens with our stories. Your stories are not real. Are not real. The story, the things, the emotions and things, the thoughts that you're telling yourself, unreal. I'm not saying they don't have a relative reality. I have a thought, we need to go get some more butter because I don't like dry toast. Those are thoughts. Are those unreal? I mean, I would never get any butter if I thought those were unreal. I just would think, well, that's unreal. I'm not doing that. And then you'd wonder, you'd probably pitch to your whomever you're with, why is there no butter? Because you didn't go get any. So it's that sounds silly, but it's that kind of a thing. It is that simple. And it is extremely challenging to wrap our mind around it because we feel like we're abandoning that kind of pragmatic or practical situation. You can still go to the store and get that. We just realize that thoughts are unreal. They have a relative reality. That's what we operate in. It's called dependent origination. So we're fine with that. Once you see this, then you can be a complete separate being, and you can go to the store and you can buy stuff. And at the same time, you can know that your thought patterns and emotions and so on that arise are dependently arisen. They don't have a separate reality of their own. And when we were talking earlier, they're self-liberated. When you see that, then they go like sparrows. They just fly away with a French fry. Have a couple more minutes. Anyone? Stephanie, you have any?
I don't right now.
Would you? Good. You do have something?
I don't.
Yeah, you do. Come on. Go ahead and ask me.
It's one of those a million questions and I wouldn't know where to start.
Okay. Anyone else have a million questions? Who knows where to start? Yes,
Just
Jeff,
back to the Trump question.
please.
Is there someone who's thought to be his reincarnation? Or
Yeah, there's someone in Tibet that's at his monastery.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember the name of the monastery. Yeah, there's he must be in his 20s by now, something like that. But I don't have the connection with him that I have with Rinpoche. I have a stronger connection with His Holiness, as far as living lamas. His Holiness the 17th Karmapa.
Yeah, I'm not up on. Is that the kind of young fellow with the glasses that's pictured on the website as one of your teachers, or?
No, that's you mean I don't know. Yeah, there's one of them. There's a bunch of guys in there. But, so his the kind of energy that arose as that particular teacher is I've not seen that around, so I don't think it's. But it doesn't matter. There's no individual that's incarnating. It's the energy itself that incarnates. Just like His Holiness Karmapa, the 16th, that didn't come back as the 17th. There is no solid being. No solid being. You won't be back. I will, but you won't be. No one's coming back. No one's left. Do you have a question? Yeah, some other questions, someone? Where do I see a hand?
Well,
There.
I was wondering, is that monastery still open in Tibet?
Whereas
Trump was from?
Yeah, and it's Sermon. I think it's Sermon, where the seat of the Trunk Batulku is, which he was the 11th, so the 12th is there now, I think, being trained. I think the Chinese are kind of backed off on the killing monks and burning monasteries. I think so those things are a little bit better there these days than they were 50 years ago. So,
But they're not gonna let, what's his name, go back to Tibet though? The Dalai Lama.
Probably not. No, it would be a good thing if they would loosen that up, but probably not. And the Dalai Lama even said that he may not have another incarnation. We don't know. Any other questions? Any questions online? Okay. Thank you. You can dedicate the mirror.
We do have two donation boxes now. You're welcome, of course, to use the one at the back, but in the hallway, we've added one for the teacher and one for the temple.
May this penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Sokuzan the 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Parvita,